Alrighty, everyone. Good evening. We are excited to kick off our part one of our six-part webinar series on physical well-being, presented by Affinity Federal Credit Union. Today's topic is nutrition. Food is more than medicine. My name is Nicholas Mataliano. I am the Wellbeing and Communication Specialist here at Affinity. Today's presenter and expert guest is Anthony Russomanno, founder of Russomanno Training LLC and personal health coach for exercise, nutrition, and lifestyle. As a reminder, this webinar is being recorded, and the link to watch this presentation again will be shared with you all in a follow-up email that will be sent out soon. Also, if you have any questions that you would like to ask during the presentation, feel free to use the Q&A option on your panel, and we'll be more than happy to address at the end of the webinar. Before we jump in, a quick disclosure. This information is for informational purposes only and is not intended to provide general guidance and does not constitute medical advice. Each person or person's circumstances are different and may not apply to specific information provided. You should seek the advice of medical professionals to discuss your specific needs before making any medical, dietary, or lifestyle commitments regarding the matters related to this webinar series. Affinity is not affiliated, nor do they endorse or recommend any of the referenced apps, websites, or companies and/or their products or services. Accordingly, Affinity takes no responsibility for the quality or reliability of the products or services offered by these apps, webinars, or companies. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Nick, for the introduction. I really appreciate it. And thank you, everyone, for coming. I really appreciate Affinity putting this together, as I'm very excited. So I actually want to begin today's webinar with a little story. And it's a story about one of my clients' transformations and one of my personal favorites. So my client was actually diagnosed with Crohn's disease at 14 years of age. He is now 26, 27, so this was way long ago. And for those that don't know, Crohn's disease is a inflammatory bowel disease that part of your intestines actually is inflamed, and it really impairs the way that you can digest, absorb, and process food. And fast forward a little bit, at 18 years of age, my client ended up following the necessary treatment and prognosis for Crohn's, which included medication and surgery. And with the surgical removal of Crohn's disease, it actually is very well known for the inflammation and the disease actually to come back 5 years later. And unfortunately, my client was no different. After years of the surgery, in 2020, the inflammation came right back and they were no longer in remission. So this brings us back to more of a present day. 2 years following that, in 2022, I received the text from my client, and I remember the day I was sitting at my desk, absolutely stoked when they texted me. And that started a 2-year journey of me and this client focusing on all aspects of health, including nutrition, exercise, sleep, and lifestyle. During that or after that two-year journey, that brings us to a couple months ago, actually in 2024, where my client had a follow-up appointment with their physician, and some of the best news came back, and the physician told them that they no longer have signs of inflammation and no longer have signs of Crohn's disease. And that was just in a 2-year journey. Don't get me wrong, it was not an easy journey. It took a lot of effort and a lot of battle from this client. But that is why I am here today. Stories like that make me so proud to be in the position I am and make me so happy with the career path that I chose. And I really want to emphasize this with everyone today and in the next 6 webinars. So many of you may be asking, is 6 webinars really necessary to paint the picture of well-being and health? Well, it truly, truly is. There are many, many aspects of health, and each of them are so important. So today we will be focusing on nutrition, right? Why food is more impactful than medicine. Part 2 will be movement and exercise. So there's going to be differentiating between the two. Part 3 will be sleep and how that is just as, if not maybe more important than the earlier two. Then we will jump into mental health, creating a healthy environment inside our head through perspective and mindset. And then the bonus part 5 and 6, we're going to be touching on habits and routines. Habits and routines are really good to develop for long-term compliance. And then part 6 will be an open conversation where we can take everything that we learned from the previous 5 and bring it all together in an open conversation. So before we jump into nutrition today, I really want to set a why behind all of these webinars, not just this one, but all six of them, to really give an idea of why I am here today and also why I love doing this. So this brings us back to increasing longevity, right? This is the main goal with health and well-being, is to truly increase our longevity. And yes, I know longevity is hot on the press keyword out there today. But I want to break this down and really give you guys a good idea of why this is important. So there are two key components to longevity that I really want you to understand. Component number one is lifespan, and number two is health span. Lifespan is quite simply how long we live, the number of years we live, and health span is going to be how well we live, right? The quality of those years that we live. Longevity is about increasing our health span. So let's take a look at this. Like I said, the difference is absolutely crucial. Life expectancy, as you can see at the top, this is going to be our average lifespan that we see if you look it up on Google. At the time of this article in 2021, it was 73 years of age. Numbers don't matter too much. It's just the main idea that I want to focus on. Health span in the same article was an average of 64 years old, meaning people were living a high quality life up until the age of 64, and then they were spending the next 9 years of their life just trying to make it as far as possible. And this comes to show how the true goal of all these things that we're going to be focusing on, all of these aspects of health, is to truly increase the quality of our life, increasing our health span. Right? I say it all the time, but many people think as a health coach that I'm just doing this because I'm a health coach for the image. But to be honest, I am truly doing this for selfish reasons because I know the value of focusing on each of these aspects of health. And I hopefully will relay that to you as well. So, jumping into the nutrition, the first part of this six-series webinar, that is going to be focusing on three things today to really hone this down. One, what are the benefits of healthy eating? Two, simplifying nutrition. And three, what should you do? My goal is to really have you walking away with a plan of action around nutrition that you could implement right after this for dinner. All right, so jumping into the first one, let's talk about the benefits of healthy eating. And I want you to think about this for a second. As you sit there, I want you to imagine you in your healthiest state, right? And truly think about this. What does that look like and what does that feel like? I'm going to give you guys a second just to truly think about that. All right, most of you probably picture yourself lean, maybe with some big muscles, ripped abs, right? In a magazine. That's what we always picture ourselves as our healthiest self. And look, you're not wrong, right? Weight management and improving our physique are are two very important benefits of healthy eating. However, my goal is to really change your perspective on this and give you a true why behind the benefits of healthy eating. All right, so we're going to go through a list, and I will bring these all together right after. Next one is improve energy and mood, improve mental well-being, improve immune and digestive system, improve physical performance, sleep, bone, hair, skin, eye, dental health, and reduce risk for chronic disease. Right? We know all these. We can look them up on Google. We see this all the time. However, what does this all lead to? It leads to an increase in health span, just like we were saying in the beginning. All of those that I just mentioned are so important because it leads to this. And why food is much, much more than medicine is because there is no drug or supplement that has this many benefits with absolutely zero side effects. And that is the true importance and benefits of healthy eating. Okay. So this is all great and all, but how do we do this? And before we get to the how, I really want to give you guys a very general run through of some terms about nutrition so you have a basic idea that we can take and implement into the how. So to really simplify nutrition, I want to go through calories, I want to go through macronutrients, and I want to go through micronutrients. These three main terms to really paint the picture of what nutrition is. Okay, so I'm comparing each of these to a nutrition label that you can see on the right hand side so that number one, you can relate the term also to the nutrition label when you are looking at a food item. So first and foremost, look, I know we all know or have an idea of what calories are, what protein, carbs, fats, all these macronutrients are, but I want to give it to you in a very simple perspective of how you can use them to hit your goals. Okay, so starting with calories. Calories are quite simply a unit of energy, right? And that unit of energy determines whether we gain, lose, or maintain weight, right? So if we are in a calorie surplus, that means we are consuming more food, aka energy, than we are burning. And that is going to cause us to gain weight. A calorie deficit means we are consuming less food, less energy than we are burning, and we are going to lose weight. And then in the middle, maintenance, consuming the same amount of food that as we are burning, that means we are going to maintain our weight. Okay, now let's break this weight fluctuation down a little further and go into our macronutrients because this is very significant. Many people probably heard of the calories in, calories out. While that is true, there are more ways to really look at this. Protein being the first macronutrient that I want to cover. We said that calories is going to determine weight fluctuation. Protein is going to determine what kind of weight we are fluctuating. What I mean by this is when we start a journey, whether that's to gain or lose weight, we shouldn't be trying to just do that, just gain or lose weight in quotes, right? What we should be trying to do is gain or maintain lean muscle while burning body fat, right? So, for example, if you're trying to lose weight, that's not necessarily the goal. The goal is to burn body fat while maintaining or even gaining lean muscle. And that is exactly what protein is going to do. It is going to allow us to gain or maintain lean muscle, right? And it has a bunch of other benefits. I go down the rabbit hole of how protein, we are literally made up of protein. Our cells are made up of protein. But one of the biggest benefits from a goal standpoint is that protein is the most satiating macronutrient of the three that we are going to touch on. What that means is it's going to make you feel full the longest. So to really paint the picture, if you have eggs for breakfast versus a bagel for breakfast, in most cases, you are going to be hungrier much quicker after the bagel than after having the eggs. And that's because eggs have protein, right? So that is the key. It is also the most satiating macronutrient as well. The second macronutrient is carbohydrates. So not many people understand this, but carbohydrates are actually our main source of energy for the body during activity, during exercise. Okay, and there are two types to focus on to really keep it simple. We have complex carbohydrates and we have simple sugars. Complex, as in the name, are more complex. They take longer to break down, which means they are going to be in these are more dinner-like foods, right? Our oats, our grains, our rices, and our beans. But the complexity of these carbs means it takes longer to break down, which means it has a different effect in our body. Simple sugars, on the other hand, are simple, right? They go straight to the bloodstream. They do not have to be broken down. And some examples of this are the natural sugars in fruit, sugars in honey, and sugars in maple syrup. Now, there's a big caveat that I want to emphasize with carbohydrates. And this goes to anything, food in general, protein as well, fats as we get into them. But the quality of carbohydrates are so important, right? The biggest thing that most people try to avoid is added sugar. Added sugar, just like we said with simple sugars, is a type of carbohydrate. And it's a carbohydrate that we really want to avoid because these are not natural simple sugars. The natural simple sugars are the sugar in fruit, honey, and maple syrup, like I mentioned previously. Added sugars are table sugar. It's what we are adding to our food to make them sweeter, to make them taste better. They are not natural. So be careful with added sugar, and you can see that in the nutrition label as well. Under total sugars, it says includes added sugars, right? So you see a difference between this item, 12 grams and 10 grams. That 10 grams of added sugar is what we are putting into our food. The 2 grams left over is actually what's coming from natural sugars. And that's a very important distinction to make. The other quality of carbohydrates that aren't so good are ultra processed carbohydrates, like the cereals, like the chips, like most store-bought breads and pastas. These one we want to be careful with as well because of the way they are digested in our body. They are not digested the same and will have a much different effect. All right, and then jumping into the third macronutrient is dietary fats. Dietary fats, not many people know this, are actually a fuel source as well. And they're our fuel source for very low intense activity or at rest. So right now I'm actually using fat as fuel. And they're actually very essential for brain and hormone health. Okay, so there are many types of dietary fats. I want to keep it very simple for you. We heard of the saturated fats, unsaturated fats. You have polyunsaturated, monounsaturated. To really keep it simple, I want you to focus on number one, avoiding trans fats. If you look at the nutrition label, this is the third line. This item greatly has zero trans fats, but trans fats are one that I will say, there's not many things that I say are in absolutes, but I will say, please avoid trans fats. Um, with the other ones, I want to keep it very simple. Avoid trans fats, don't worry about saturated versus unsaturated fats if, and this is a big if, you are eating natural, clean, organic sources of these fats. Okay. And some examples are fat from organic animal meats, like including red meats and eggs. These are healthy fats, yogurt, grass-fed butter, unprocessed oils, including avocado oil, coconut oil, and olive oil as well, and then nuts and seeds. These are just a select few to give you an example of healthy dietary fats. And then last thing that I want you to keep in mind with fats are that fats are more calorie dense than any of the three macronutrients we've mentioned. Protein and carbohydrates contain 4 calories per gram, while dietary fats are 9 calories per gram. Okay, so definitely keep that in mind, especially when we get into serving sizes. Bonus macronutrient that I'm throwing in here because it is so important is water. I know we all know the importance of water, but if you don't, I'll give you a quick little summary and maybe a little different perspective on water. Let's take our cells, right? We are made up of cells. We have trillions and trillions of cells within our body. Our cells are made up of 70% water. And when we are not consuming enough water, meaning we are becoming dehydrated, what actually happens is the water inside our cell is getting pulled out to go to our body because we are not fueling ourselves with enough water. And when our cells are dehydrated, that is not a good thing. So if you think about water now, you can think about this picture and just think about how we don't want to dehydrate ourselves. All right. So we touch on calories, we touch on macronutrients, and then the last basic of nutrition that is of just as important as the previous ones is micronutrients. Okay. We know so many things about macronutrients, but micronutrients is hidden under the table, and I really want to bring it to the top. Okay, and I have a perfect analogy for micronutrients, but to keep it simple, micronutrients are vitamins and minerals. Okay, so you can see at the bottom of this nutrition label, they do show the micronutrients. However, there are tons and tons and tons of micronutrients. But a good way to think about and differentiate macro and micronutrients are think about the gas and oil of a car. Okay, so for macronutrients, macronutrients are like the gas to our cars, right? We put it in the car for fuel. It burns after we go for a while, and then we have to refill it again, right? There are different qualities of gases, and without gas, the car isn't moving very far, right? So that's what macronutrients are. They fuel our bodies. Micronutrients, on the other hand, is the oil to our car. Okay, we know it's there. It's a second thought, though. If you're not a mechanic like me, I don't know much about what the oil is doing. I just know it's good for the engine, right? But a car cannot survive or an engine cannot run without the oil. So it has just as importance as macronutrients, as the gas, but we don't think about it and we don't see it. But it has the same importance. And that's what micronutrients are. Micronutrients are found in real food and organic food, like I was mentioning previously, right? And unfortunately, many people in today's world are deficient in macronutrient or in micronutrients, and that's because most of our food contains processed foods. So if we are not getting real food like meats, fruits, and veggies, we are also not getting micronutrients, and therefore we are not giving our car any oil. So think about it that way. Okay. So those are the main terms that I wanted to go through for nutrition. So now we can get into why you are all probably here, and that is what should we do? Okay. Now, I know how much information is out there on social media and on the internet in general. Okay. So you think about all the diets that are out there, all the fads, all of that kind of stuff, and you try to come up with a list. Well, I made it very easy for all of us, and I asked our very new friend ChatGPT to do this for us. And ChatGPT, like always, came and gave me a whole list, and this is what he came back with. Crazy, right? We know all these diets are out here, but I did not honestly know that there were this many. So look, this can get very overwhelming with all these nutritional approaches, information, and it can really feel like there is no direction, no sense of where to go. And my goal for you today is to avoid that, is to have you leave here today to go to make your dinner with an idea of where to start your journey. Okay. Now, before I get into specifically what I'm going to leave you with, I want to give you a few options in terms of approaches that I personally coach my clients in that I have seen work pretty well. One of them is intuitive eating. That is eating based on your hunger, your satiation levels, how foods make you feel, and how they're going to affect your health. There is also food tracking. That's using an app to track your calories, to track your macronutrients based on your goals. And then there is meal planning, which is following a set list of foods or a structure of foods based on your goals, right? These three are great and they do work really well, and it depends on the person. However, to keep it really general for everyone to leave with something today, I want to show you my general structure, my general way I coach my clients, and also my favorite, probably because it has worked the best. But that is what we're going to focus on. Okay. So before we get into the general structure, I want you to think about three key things. Okay. Number one is I want you to be aware of all the nutritional myths out there on social media because there are a lot. Okay. I want you to think about this, right? Many people say you must choose a diet. You're going to see on there one that I previously saw today is that oatmeal is bad. Another common one is that eating carbs is going to make you gain weight. Red meat and eggs increase your cholesterol. There's all these things about fasting, detoxing, cleansing. Look, I'm not saying those things don't work for some people, right? It is very person dependent, but I want to give you a general structure that you can follow so that you don't have to worry about all these nutritional myths. Okay. Secondly, I want you to focus on what's important, and this is going to go straight into that structure that I was referring to. The first thing that I want you to focus on is eating whole and real foods. Okay, so what does this mean? Minimally processed foods. I know I touched on macro and micronutrients, but real food is food that is from the earth that contains both of these. Okay, and then like I said before, processed and ultra processed foods only unfortunately contain macronutrients, right? You look at a nutrition label, you can see the macronutrients and the calories, even if it's a processed food, right? Chips, for example, it has calories, it has protein, carbs, and fats. However, they don't have any nutritional value because these ultra processed and processed foods do not have any micronutrients. They have no vitamins and minerals. So that is what I like to call having no nutritional value. Okay, so to keep it simple and a good way to think about eating whole and real foods is think about a grocery store. And this is going to really keep it simple. And look, don't take this 100% at face value because there are caveats to this. However, think about a grocery store. The outside of the store is going to be lined with our meats, our seafood, dairy, bakery, and our produce. While the inside of the center of our store is going to be the non-perishable goods, right? The processed and ultra-processed foods. Our goal here, generally speaking, to keep it simple, is to buy 80% of your groceries from the outside of the store while only buying 20% of your groceries from inside the store. Not only will this help you save money because those middle aisles can get very easy to start throwing things in the cart. However, it's going to be really good for you in order to try to eat mainly clean food. Okay. So number one, really focus on eating whole and real foods. Number two, eat more protein. I emphasize the importance of protein in the beginning. Eat more protein for every single meal. The goal is 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight or goal body weight, and also having protein in every single meal. In every time you sit down to eat something, whether it's a meal or a snack, protein is going to be very important. Some examples are going to be organic and clean meat, fish, eggs, yogurt, and many, many more. Um, Third on this list are going to be controlling your portion sizing based on your goals. Okay. So this is going to determine whether you're trying to gain, maintain, or lose weight, how much protein you need, many, many factors that go into controlling your portion sizing. And then finally, ideally trying to cook all, if not most, meals at home. This is very, very important for a couple of reasons. Number one, you can control the ingredients that are going in your food and you can keep it clean. You can also control the amount of ingredients that are added to the food as well, because unfortunately, at restaurants and stuff like that, they are going to just try to make the food taste as good as possible so that you can come back, which typically means adding fattier foods, which are more calorically dense, like oil. So ideally cook meals at home, but look, I am just like you. I love going out to eat. So if you are going out to eat, that's great. Just try to minimize the amount of times that you do that. Okay. So let's get into the very last thing of this structure. How can I, for dinner tonight, make a clean and healthy plate? And that's what I want to leave you with today. Okay, so let me preface with these. There are no specific serving sizes because, like I mentioned, you have to do that based on your goal. But you can use this structure of how to build your plate in every single meal, and I will show you how to do that I'll show you examples at the end of this. So number one that we want to do is put a protein. Think about a protein. Any meal or snack that you are having, your first thought should be, okay, what am I going to build this meal around? What protein source is going to be the start of my plate? One serving is on here. However, again, that's going to depend on your goals. But this is something I want to emphasize. One serving of a lean or fatty protein source. It's very easy to avoid the fatty protein sources like our chicken thighs, ribeyes, turkey legs, salmon, mackerel. However, these fatty protein sources are good for us. They're healthy fats, especially salmon because it's rich in omega 3s. And I don't want you to avoid this. There is a caveat if you do a fatty protein source, which I will touch on when we get to fats. After your protein, you can think about what carbohydrate you're going to have. All right, so again, serving size is based on your goals, but keep it really clean. Remember that caveat that I said about the quality of carbohydrates being very, very important. So we have sweet potatoes, regular potatoes, beans, lentils, rice, pastas, breads. Again, quality of the latter, rice, pastas, and breads. But that is what you're going to put on your plate next. Third, I want you to think about a fruit or a veggie depending on what meal. Okay. And I say 4 to 6 ounces of choice. Again, this is just going to be determined on how much you're having, how many meals you're having, all of that. But just try to get a good amount of fruit or veggies on your plate. Typically for me, which I'm going to show you, veggies are going to happen later in the day, while fruits are mainly for breakfast. That is not a both; it's an and. You could do both, but it's going to be an or situation. Okay. And then fats with the asterisk, which I'll explain, but adding a fat to your plate as well and a healthy fat, including some of the ones I mentioned previously, but avocados, my absolute favorite. We have nuts, we have seeds, we have organic and clean cheeses, extra virgin olive oil, coconut oil, avocado oil. I mentioned those before. However, this asterisk is very important. I mentioned in the beginning about not avoiding fatty proteins. If you are eating a fatty protein, that is great. You're going to get healthy fats from it, but there is no need to add an additional fat source. You are getting healthy fats from the protein. And if you're going to add another fat source, that is just going to increase the caloric amount of that meal. Now, if you are trying to gain weight, that is a different conversation because you're going to need more calories. But if you are just trying to maintain or eat clean, eat healthy, change around your diet, general rule of thumb is if you're picking a fatty protein source, that is great. No need to add in a fat. If you're having a lean protein source like chicken breast, lean ground beef, tuna, pork loin, then I would add in an additional fat source. Okay. And then honorable mention, condiments. Condiments are amazing. Just make sure they are clean, organic. Be careful of the added sugar, some of the other added ingredients in them as well. Number one on my list is mustard. I know I'm gonna get some hate for that, but mustard is my absolute favorite. And then easy other ones are the ones listed out as well. All right, so I want to take this, how to build your plate, and give you guys examples of how I personally do this in each of my meals. Each of these meals are actually going to be on my website. There is a link on my website. Go to free resources, and it's going to be in the recipe book. But to show you how this goes, my daily breakfast, okay, we have eggs and egg whites for our protein. We have sauerkraut for our veggie, and this time in the morning I did a bowl of fruit. Again, portion sizing is based on my goals, so do not take these numbers literal. I just want to show you the structure. For lunch, something that I love doing is a salad. I love salads because you can create so much variety with it. So the salad, the romaine, that is going to be our veggie. I'm going to throw in some ground beef for my protein. I'm going to throw in a sweet potato for my healthy carbs, and then an avocado because the ground beef was lean ground beef. All right. For dinner, another poke bowl that I made is albacore tuna, right? So this is a very lean protein. We are adding in egg noodles for the carbs, but they also have some healthy fats in there as well from the eggs, depending on which brand you get, of course. And then we have a blend of mixed veggies, following that same structure. And I will not leave this out. Yes, you can follow this for dessert. One of my favorite desserts that I make is yogurt. I mix a scoop or half a scoop of protein powder, and then I add in some cacao nibs for the healthy fats. And then I add an apple as well, or any kind of fruit. Shows you the same exact thing. We're getting our protein, we're getting our healthy our healthy fruit, and then we are getting our healthy fats as well. So that brings us to the end of this webinar. My goal again was to truly leave everyone with a plan of action of what you can do right after this webinar in your next meal. I have a bunch of resources. I have a free Facebook community that I would love for you to join. You can follow me on socials, Instagram, YouTube. Definitely trying to grow my YouTube, so that would be awesome if you could subscribe, as well as many, many free resources as on my website. If you do scan this QR code, it'll take you to the links to all of these, and you can access them there. I will definitely be staying for any open discussion or questions that anyone may have. But I do appreciate everyone tuning in, especially on a Tuesday night at 6 p.m.
Thank you so much, Anthony. It looks like we have our first question here. What do you think about cheat days, or should it be a
Mm.
cheat meal?
Mm. Love, love, love this question. So definitely one of the most common questions I get. Couple of things, right? It really depends. And I'll be honest, I am going to answer many of these questions with it depends. It depends on your goals. It depends on how quickly you want to get to your goals. Let's say, for example, you are trying to lose weight. I am totally for and okay with cheat meals for a couple of reasons. One, it's realistic, right? I am totally understanding of how not everyone wants to eat the foods that I just laid out to you guys every single day. Personally, I do, but this is my career. So I get the other side. And if that's the case, I would really highly recommend you incorporating a cheat meal as a reward at the end of the week, during the week, where you are working really, really hard to be disciplined during the week, eating the healthy foods, doing the workouts, which we're going to talk about in the next webinar, so that when you get to that cheat meal, you enjoy it, right? It satisfies you. It's awesome, right? You look forward to that. So I would really focus on having that one, whether it's a day or a meal, and then to differentiate between the day and the meal, this is going to depend on your goal, how quickly you want to get to your goal. Obviously, if it's a day, your progress is going to be slowed down a little bit. If it's a meal, it's going to slow it down a little bit less. Just remember that if you are having a cheat day, it is not going to kill you. Okay. It is going to, okay. It's not going to destroy your progress. Just really focus on the most important thing to cheat meals and cheat days is the following day to really get back on your typical routine, your typical healthy habits. That's going to be the most important part about cheat days, cheat meals. All right.
Awesome. That was great. Got another question here. Is whole wheat bread really that much better than maybe sourdough?
Mm, love this. This is a great question because you are asking someone who actually just started baking his own sourdough. I spent the last 3 or 4 months trying to figure out how to make sourdough. It was worth every second of it, don't get me wrong. Um, but to answer your question, at the end of the day, in terms of whole wheat versus sourdough versus white, I'm going to keep it simple. It's where the bread is coming from. Okay, so don't get too fixated on the type of bread because that does depend, right? For example, wheat bread is going to have more fiber, which is better for digestion. White bread is more simple, so it's going to be digested easier. There's so many different caveats within it. What I really want you to focus on is where you're getting your bread, the quality of your bread. Okay. And the reason this is so important is because if you're getting it from a bakery or you're making it at home, in most cases, when it's not mass produced, the quality is going to be significant. And that brings me back to the quality of carbohydrates. So I would say general rule of thumb with breads in overall, the type doesn't matter too much. Just the quality and the sourcing of it is most important.
Awesome. Alrighty. We have another one here. I hear diet soda is bad for you, but
Mhm.
should I have regular soda for my caffeine?
Okay. So again, answer is it is going to depend between diet soda, regular soda, and not having it at all. What I will say from a me personally, let's start with regular soda. I highly recommend if you're getting it for caffeine to get it from some other source. Reason being is because regular soda has almost, I believe a regular can of Coke has more than 40 grams of added sugar, which is, I mean, almost 10 times the amount we should be having in a day. So I would say definitely avoid regular soda, especially if it's just for caffeine. Regarding diet soda, this is where it really depends. You're going to see it all over social media of whether these artificial flavors and sweeteners are good versus bad for you, whether you can have it. I would say general rule of thumb is if diet soda gets you off regular soda, gets you off the sugary soda, I'm all for it. If you can ideally go from regular soda to diet and then diet to no soda at all, that is ideal. I highly recommend that. But again, it depends. So I would work it in that kind of transition.
Gotcha. What is your opinion on protein powders?
Mm.
What type brand do you recommend? This person uses Orgain, I believe it is.
Yep, I know Oregon very well. So, protein powders. I absolutely, I full transparency use a protein powder every single day, but it is going. Everyone's going to get mad at me. It does depend on the quality. The quality of these protein powders is very significant. So before I get into what I recommend, what I want you to focus on are a couple things, and this goes with supplements in general. Supplements do not have to be regulated at all. So that means that I can personally make a supplement and sell it on the market without it having to go through any kind of uh, processing to be put on the shelves or whatever. So with that being said, we have to be very careful with supplements, specifically protein powders. I would not, when it comes to supplements, I would not buy cheap. I highly recommend, I honestly rather you not use a protein powder if it's going to be a cheap one and use a high quality one. So with that being said, where to find the high quality ones? Well, many companies will use this as a marketing tool in terms of saying that they're FDA approved, that they're third party approved. There's a bunch of third party approval systems. Look for those. Those are very good. What I would avoid is honestly getting your protein powders from many grocery stores or, for example, supplement stores like GNC. This is where many of these very heavily processed and bad quality powders or supplements in general are going to be located. I personally use a brand called First Form. And again, you actually will find that the link to the protein powder in the if you scan the QR code. I use First Form because one, I actually worked with them previously before I started my own business for nutrition counseling. And then I just continue using their supplements because I know the quality is really good. I know the type of brand that they are. There are many other brands like this. Another brand is called Bear Performance Nutrition. There's another one called Transparent Labs. Orgain is one that I have heard of, but not have not looked too deeply into. But long answer short, definitely depends on the quality. I would make sure that you spend a little extra money to make sure you're actually getting what a protein powder is supposed to be used for, or any supplements.
Awesome. What's your take on adding electrolyte powders like LMT to your water
Mhm.
for optimal hydration?
Yes, I love Element and many other electrolyte supplements. I would say this is very important. Electrolytes are, and we touch on water and hydration. Our electrolytes are absolutely essential for hydration if you are eating a very clean and healthy diet. Reason being is because what electrolytes are, we'll keep it simple, sodium and potassium, specifically sodium, so salt. Um, and the reason I say it depends on if you're eating clean food is because when you're eating very healthy, you're not having these processed foods. And what the processing of food does is they add salt to these foods so that it can last longer, right? Salt is a natural preservative, which means the foods that are processed are going to be much more salt rich. So you don't necessarily need to add an electrolyte powder or supplement if you're eating high amounts of processed foods. Now, for me, I eat minimal, if any, processed foods, which means I am more, and I'm also an athlete as well, which means I am more susceptible to being sodium deficient. So I personally do have an electrolyte powder that I use. That's actually from the Bear Performance Nutrition brand. And then I also use Element for some of my more intense days. Um, General rule of thumb with electrolytes, 500 milligrams of sodium, 250 milligrams of potassium will do for the general person. Again, if and as long as you are eating a healthy and clean diet.
Gotcha. And a segue to the next question, energy drinks, yes or no?
Mhm. Limited, I would say limit, don't not avoid, but limit only for that reason because the caffeine from energy drinks and I'll add in pre-workouts is actually a synthetic form of caffeine, which is going to have a very different effect on our bodies. I will say, personally, I love coffee. I'm obsessed with coffee, so I get all my caffeine from coffee. But if you are having a caffeinated energy drink or a pre-workout, I would try to have it early in the morning. Really try not to have it 10 to 12 hours before you go to bed. And be careful with how quickly you are consuming it as well.
All right, another one. What do you think about ground turkey instead of ground beef?
Mhm. Love it. So I would say interchangeable, to be honest, because you can get a lean ground turkey, you can get a lean ground beef, you can also get a fatty ground turkey and a fatty ground beef. So I would say they're honestly interchangeable, and I think variety is always key, right? These different animal meats are going to have different micronutrients, so definitely get a variety of both.
Gotcha. All right. 1 gram protein per pound body weight. If I weigh 200 pounds, how am I going to get 200 grams? Steak, etc.
Mhm.
provides maybe 25 to 30 in a portion. Should I get heavy on supplement protein shakes?
Mhm. So, a couple things. One, this obviously is a very more in-depth question in terms of like breaking down your protein per meal, which I'll definitely give you a general rule of thumb. In terms of supplements, let's tackle that real quick. For protein shakes, I would say no more than two a day. So if you're having 2 scoops, that's great. That's going to get you about 40 to 50 grams of protein, depending on the powder that you get. Um, in terms of how to hit this, I totally get it. Look, I actually have worked with one of my clients to get them to 250 grams of protein, which they're hitting consistently. What it really comes down to is a couple things. One, really being on top of your preparation. Okay, so for example, if you are having to need 200 grams of protein, well, let's take 50, let's just say you're doing 2 scoops of protein powder. Let's take 50 grams of that, and now your goal is 150. Well, if you are just having 3 meals, that's gonna be 50 grams of protein per meal. Okay. Now, the protein in the steak that you were mentioning, it really does depend. It depends on what kind of your steak you're having, because leaner steaks like top sirloin are going to be much higher in protein. Um, for example, even like lean chicken breast, right? Chicken breast, if you have about 6 to 8 ounces, which could be a big fillet or maybe 2 small fillets, you're actually going to be getting around that 50 grams of protein as well. The other thing I would really focus on is adding what I call secondary protein sources. So you have your main protein source like the steak you were mentioning, but I would also consider adding secondary. Like these are going to be like our legumes, right? Beans, lentils. One of my favorites are chickpeas. It's going to be a carbohydrate, but also is going to give you an additional protein as well. Organic and clean cheeses are going to have some protein. Cottage cheese is an absolute cheat code to increase your protein amount. It has about 14 grams of protein per serving. So that would be absolutely awesome to add in as well. So not only breaking it down per meal, but also adding these secondary protein sources as well to get there.
Awesome. What do you think about weight reduction injections and also
Mm.
keto diet?
Awesome. So I will start quickly with keto because I know I mentioned at least all these different kinds of diets in the webinar. Keto is one of those diets that research shows it works very, very well for some people, but I want to emphasize some people. This goes with any diet question, whether it's keto, carnivore, you name it. It is going to depend person to person. I personally, as a health coach, when I'm attacking nutrition, I leave it up to the person. If they want to try keto, that is awesome. I'm going to let them know that keto goes back to the previous question. You cannot have any cheat meals during keto. So that's whether you want to live that kind of a lifestyle. If you want to be all in, keto is going to be great. It has a lot of benefits. However, it really just depends on the person. And then second part of that question, I'm trying to find it. It was about injections, right?
Correct. Yes.
Reduction injections. Yes. Personally, look, I'm gonna really preface this with I don't love many of these injections of these weight loss pills, only because I really want people to focus on taking the natural approach first. Many people unfortunately just really go to the fast acting and the quick option in regarding to, I mean, think about supplements, right? People are taking supplements because hopefully they'll get to their result quicker. So I don't know too much specifically about the weight injections and the weight loss pills. My take on it is if you can really try to get rid of the instant gratification and focus on the long term and delayed gratification lifestyle, that is going to be of utmost importance. Main reason being is because, look, research is back and forth. We know that about all these different diets, of all these different techniques, which means it's also back and forth with all of these new medications and injections and everything coming out. So if you can take the natural approach, that is going to be the safest because, like I mentioned, nutrition is the only way to get all of these benefits without any side effects that we just don't know what side effects, especially long-term side effects, are to come with all of these new innovations.
Gotcha. Alrighty. What do you think about the Culture Pop probiotic soda with 6% sugar?
So I've heard of culture pop. I don't know exactly. I would have to look at the nutrition label on it. However, probiotic sodas are I know they're hot right now. Again, I don't know the content of probiotics that are in these sodas, so that definitely depends. I would say for added sugar, just in terms of the serving size, really try to keep it below 5 grams of added sugar in whatever you're having. Personally, I'm not a fan of drinking calories. I like eating. So I like eating my calories. So if any of my added sugar, which is minimal, will come from actual food. So that's something to think about. But I would say overall, probiotic drinks are great. You're gonna have natural sugars from the fermentation of the soda. So there are sugars in there. Just try to really avoid the natural sugars. Or sorry, try to avoid the added sugars.
Awesome. Alrighty. How many calories and carbs should be targeted per day for weight reduction?
Mm. Depends, right? Calories, like I said, for for weight reduction in this case, you need to be consuming less than the amount you are burning, right? And the reason it depends is because it depends on how much you weigh, it depends on your height, it depends on your metabolism, it depends on how long you have been gaining weight as well, right? A big misconception about weight loss is people try to do it quick when they have to think about how many years they've been putting the weight on. It's not going to be the same amount to put it off, but it's not going to be that as quickly. So think about it that way. There's many things that go into consideration. You can do many calorie counters online or calculators online that will give you a general rule of thumb for your goal. But I would say if you truly keep to the structure and you eat based on how you feel and your hunger levels, and you really try to make these very small changes, you could make significant impact on weight reduction without even focusing on calories. Carbohydrates is another one that depends, right? Depends on whether you want to do low carb, high carb, what depends on how active you are. So same thing there. I would say as long as you are keeping it clean, you're making these necessary and small changes, that will go a very, very long way. If you want to, you could use those calculators online.
Awesome. What is the best kind of food to eat out?
I love this. So yeah, so I personally, what I do when I eat out is I really try to stick to salads with dressing on the side. The reason being is because if they are adding any oils, it's only going to be the oil for the meat that they're cooking for the salad. And then I can control the dressings as well. Usually, I will try to use very, very little dressing because dressings are really where the calories start to add in. Dressings are very high in added sugar and fats, especially the ones at any kind of restaurant. However, you can get many dressings in the store that are clean. So I usually go with the salad. However, if I'm at a steakhouse, I will go with try to get a nice grilled steak with some veggies on the side. To be honest, I really tried to follow that structure. I really look at the menu, think, okay, what protein can I have? And then I work off of it from there. If there's not many healthy and clean veggie options, then I will go with the salad. But obviously, it does truly depend on the restaurant.
Love it. What are your views on smoothies and juicing?
Mm, love this. So overall, I would say be careful with smoothies, especially if you're going out, because this is where they really add in a lot of added sugar. Not sure why they add added sugar to smoothies because they're already natural sweetened from the fruit. But be very, very careful with smoothies. They will add in a lot to make it very, very sweet. If and this goes the same thing with smoothies with juices, again, if you are making them at home or if you're getting them from a clean store, if it is just fruit, whatever other ingredients you want to add in, if all the ingredients are clean, organic, and well sourced, I am totally for smoothies and juicing as well. um, Juicing, especially like carrot juice and like any other kind of veggie juice, so good, especially if you're trying to get that like satisfaction fix where maybe, for example, you're trying to cut diet soda out, but you still want that drink and you don't want caffeine. You want that fix. I think those are great options because they're going to be very minimal calories. You're going to have a lot of nutrients, and at least you're getting some sort of that satisfaction.
Awesome. What is your opinion on drinking full sugar Gatorade during weight training workouts?
Oh yeah, yeah. So this is a great question. I would say number one, it depends on how intense the exercise is. And it also depends on your goals as well. So this question is specifically focusing on fueling for performance, which is very, very different for eating for physique. Okay, there's a big difference there. If you're fueling for performance and it's a very high intense exercise, I would say over 45 minutes to an hour, totally okay with Gatorade, even though it has the added sugars. And the reason I'm okay with it is because those added sugars are going to be used into the muscle right away from the exercise that you are doing. And we will touch this a little bit in movement and exercise in the next webinar. So I will say though, there are much, much better options to get your carbohydrates, your simple sugars in. Personally, I will do in a supplement form. So I mentioned that Bear Performance Nutrition Company. They actually have these little, they're called Go Gels, but they also have other like supplement powders as well. That is just a better source of carbohydrates for an intra workout supplement. But for some natural sources, you can go with some of the natural, like fruit is a great, dried fruit is a great one. If you don't want to eat, then I would definitely go with more of a supplementation route. However, not a terrible option to go with the Gatorades.
Gotcha. All right. Looks like we have another question, kind of segue into supplements. What do you think about taking supplement vitamins, or can they be eliminated if we eat in accordance with the micronutrients you mentioned?
Love, love, love that question. So this is very key and supplements in general, right? The term supplement is to supplement a healthy diet, right? To aid in it. So I never, never, never want supplements to be a replacement, right? Just like protein powders are going to help you hit your protein goals, micronutrients. So any multivitamin is going to help you hit your micronutrient levels. It is not going to replace it. So I definitely still want you to get the servings of fruits and veggies in. That way, the micronutrient, the multivitamin that you're taking is going to cover the foundation, and then any extra that you're getting from fruits and veggies are just going to really optimize.
Awesome. Is it safe to consume creatine monohydrate daily? What brand do you recommend, if so?
Love, love, love this. So, let me preface with I'm very biased on creatine. My graduate research for my exercise physiology master's was actually all on creatine. So I spent 2 years studying. I will say creatine, since you're asking about the safety, in my opinion, with the hours and hours and days of research that I did, creatine is hands down, in my opinion, the safest, most effective, and cheapest supplement on the market. Reason it's the safest is because the only side effect of creatine is water retention, and that water retention is in your body. All that's happening is it's moving water from your body to your muscles. So, very simple answer to fix to that is just to drink more water, but don't be overly concerned. Um, Biggest thing with creatine is that it is not going to make you build a massive amount of muscle. It's not a steroid. Creatine is actually an energy form or molecule that is going to help you with fast acting. So if you're going to do a sprint or you're going to do a maximal effort resistance training exercise, that is where creatine is going to come into play. And I will mention that there are a lot of research coming about creatine and the benefits on brain performance and brain health. So that is super interesting. In terms of where to get creatine, creatine monohydrate, if it's truly just creatine monohydrate, you can really get it from anywhere. Again, the one I use is from that First Form brand, but because it's just creatine monohydrate, it's made in a lab. It is extracted creatine, so you should be okay with going with most brands there.
Very interesting. All right. Have another one here. Anthony mentioned you enjoyed coffee. Me too.
Mhm.
Are you drinking black coffee only? No milk, sugar, half and half, or coffee creamers?
Yeah, so I personally drink black coffee, and but let me say I had to get there, right? So when I first started my little health journey, health kick, I was full Starbucks, venti, latte, whatever, all those the 15 names that come after. I got the sugary drinks too. And then when I started realizing the impact these had, I started very slowly working my way down. So I started with the sugary drinks, and I cut the sugar, and I did one of the non-sweeteners, right? So again, yes, you can get in the conversation of artificial sweeteners. However, it was better than the sugar. So I went from the sugar to the sugar-free ones. And then from the sugar-free sweetened ones, I actually went to almond milk only. So that was a good way to get a little bit of taste. It wasn't necessarily just black, but then that was the next progression for me. And then the following progression was just going straight black coffee. If you are one that's just like, black coffee is never going to happen for you, totally okay. I would say try to really avoid the sugar, of course. You can definitely go with milk half and a half or creamer. Just again, the quality of the creamer half and half and milk is very important. I would really try to get it from an organic grass-fed source. And also, if you have any kind of dairy issues, then obviously be aware of that. Another little cheat code that I do is add some sort of a protein powder to my coffee sometimes. whether that is a collagen powder or a regular protein powder. You get the taste from the powder, but then you also get the additional benefits from protein as well. So again, it's actually a salted caramel flavor from First Form as well, and it is fantastic. So that is how my coffee journey went.
Awesome. All righty. All right. Looks like we have one more question here before we close. What do you think about drinking hot tea after a meal?
hmm So, in terms of after a meal, I have seen this in something on social media about having tea right after a meal. I would say if you're having it for the just the setting and just because you enjoy that kind of routine, go for it. Don't think that it's actually doing any benefits to that meal. Sure, maybe, I don't know, the research may show that it digests better. To be honest, I would say if that's part of a routine for you, go for it. The only caveat would be the caffeine, so just be careful. If you can get decaffeinated tea, that would be ideal because it could very well impact your sleep, which we will jump into in detail in the third webinar on sleep.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Anthony. I mean,
hmm
this was very great. I learned a bunch of different things. I wanted to thank everyone for joining today. We will be sending out a follow-up email with the recording. And if you have any questions, feel free to email myself or Anthony. We look forward to seeing you at our part 2 of our series, Movement and Exercise, differentiating between the two. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your night.
Thank you.